Thank you, Alaskan Corla. Minister, we discussed here previously the adverse impacts Brexit will have. Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, or a deal with, or a Brexit with a deal, the impact it will have on our particular economy. As you know well, our economy is very interdependent with our neighbours in Northern Ireland. The sectors that are critically important to our local economy in Cavan and Monaghan are equally important in Fermanagh, Tyrone and Armagh. And I believe I welcome the funding that's provided in the budget in regard to a no-deal Brexit. And of course, as my colleague Deputy Robert Troy said earlier today, we want to know the details, how that would be shared out between equity loans or grants. And I would appeal to you to ensure that the sectors that are most vulnerable to a no-deal Brexit, that they are given particular attention and a specific scheme of grant aid. Thank you, Alaskan Corla.
Lascan Corlia Gormaigot, can I take the two questions together, or is that okay, Deputy? We'll take the your two questions together. Yeah. Since 2016, my department has worked with the enterprise development agencies, businesses and representative bodies to ensure we have the appropriate mix of supports for businesses to prepare and manage through whatever Brexit we may face over the coming period. The most immediate consequences of a hard Brexit are likely to be currency movements, supply chain constraints, delays, duties and tariffs. In the first instance, this will put strain on the working capital position of businesses, and I am progressing legislation to increase the amount which Microfinance Ireland can lend from 25,000 up to 50,000, which increases support to any micro enterprise employing 10 people or less. So that's open to everybody, whether it's a hairdresser or a haulier. If they're employing less than 10 people, that's available. So this will support an additional 1,000 enterprises with short-term loans. For higher working capital challenges, the €300 million Brexit loan scheme provides loans up to 1.5 million at a rate of 4% or less, and approval is valid for 4 months. So I advise businesses to secure the approval now and be ready for any scenario. And with the overdraft facility, you can have it in place and you don't pay for it except you use it. For longer-term loan requirements, the Future Growth Loan Scheme is another 300 million for investment by SMEs, primary agriculture and seafood businesses, and both government schemes are administered by SBCI and delivered through the banks. Most recently, the joint SkillNet and Enterprise Ireland Clear Customs Scheme was launched on the 7th of August to help custom agents, intermediaries and affected Irish businesses. And this is a free customs training programme delivered nationwide by SkillNet, coupled with 3 million funding which is allocated to Enterprise Ireland for a support payment of up to 6,000 per employee to help with extra costs to manage customs compliance. And indeed, I was up in Cavan only 2 weeks ago, where they were holding one of those courses in the Enterprise Centre. The large suite of supports available also include the Brexit scorecard, grant aid, consultancy, mentoring, advisory, clinics, Agile Innovation Fund, Operational Excellence Offer and Market Discovery Fund. And these support help companies consider various risks such as supply chain vulnerabilities and act to mitigate against them. And all of these supports are critical for businesses in the highly vulnerable border areas and for exporters who are heavily exposed to the UK market in sectors such as construction, engineering and food. And I recently collaborated with the accountancy bodies of Ireland on 4 Brexit briefing events between July and September, covering a number of counties in the border region that are likely to be the most impacted by Brexit. And the events took place in Cavan on July, Monaghan, Donegal and Louth in September there, with over 500 people in attendance. So these Brexit events covered a range of important topics to help businesses prepare for Brexit, whether it's the supply chain, your cash flow, your accreditation and a number of other issues. The events provided an opportunity for me to speak directly to companies impacted by Brexit in the border region. And can I just acknowledge the work of Deputy Smith and what he's doing on Brexit as Chairman of the Committee on Foreign Affairs and Trade. And I'm from the Clones area, and Deputy, your home is not far from Belturbet, Bownby and Ballyconnell, which are towns that bore the brunt of the troubles when a hard border was in place, and we do not want to go back to those days. And that is why everything the government is doing is focused on ensuring that we do not have a hard border on this island. And I know just in recent months Deputy Smith has brought delegations and parliamentarians to the border region to highlight the impact Brexit would have. And it's that sort of joined-up approach that we have seen to date in this Parliament to Brexit that is a stark contrast to what we see in Westminster, and it's important we acknowledge that.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, I welcome your commitment to ensure that our smaller enterprises get support, and I think it's very important that those enterprises have the capacity and the capability to draw down whatever support is necessary, because oftentimes when programmes of assistance are available, it's often the most needy aren't in a position to draw down that support. It's extremely important. Minister, recently I saw in the context of Mr Johnston's proposals, Manufacturing Northern Ireland made the point that 99% of manufacturing businesses in Northern Ireland are small and medium enterprises. So only 1% of manufacturing businesses in Northern Ireland are large businesses. We can say that our economy is similar in the border counties. So it's extremely important that assistance is very much targeted towards our small and medium enterprises. I mentioned earlier, you did yourself, the importance of the agri-food sector, the construction product sector, engineering and tourism as well to our border economy. Our economies are very interdependent, and I think a message has to be got across both to the Northern Ireland authorities, to the British authorities, and within the agencies in our own state, that we need our businesses north and south working together, because we know oftentimes the company in Clonus or Ballyconnell that exports to Fermanagh or Tyrone or Armagh, they don't regard that as an export, they regard it as local trade. So we have to factor into all decision making that the interdependence of our economy, of our border economy, both north and south.
Minister, to respond.
Thank you, Deputy Smith, and you're absolutely right. And of course, nobody knows better than you and I the links between businesses both north and south of the border. And that's why in Budget 2019 I allocated additional funding to Intertrade Ireland, who have vouchers that help companies. They can avail of them very easily. €2,250. They get the voucher. They can apply somebody in their company to identify the risks that Brexit presents and mitigate for those risks. And also yesterday, as part of the €110 million Brexit announcement, there's another further €2 million to Intertrade Ireland, because you and I both know that jobs lost north of the border can mean people losing their jobs south of the border and vice versa. And that's why we need this joined up thinking, and that's why Intertrade Ireland have really been doing great work. Even though there's no executive in Northern Ireland, there's normally matched funding, but once again we stepped up to the mark, and we are providing Intertrade Ireland with the additional funding that they will need to make sure that all the supports possible are given to the businesses in the border region, because I know that we are obviously very exposed due to our geographical location so close to the border with Northern Ireland.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, the absence of the Assembly and Executive in Northern Ireland at this time is absolutely deplorable, when the North-South Ministerial Council should be meeting and preparing an all-Ireland approach to Brexit. And unfortunately, that's the position. Can you give the House an assurance, Minister, that there's good and active cooperation between the authorities, our authorities, and the Northern Ireland departments and agencies? Because I'm sure that businesses and business people come and speak to you, as they do to myself from Fermanagh and Tyrone as well, who are concerned about the lack of a non-functioning Assembly and Executive in Northern Ireland, and they're anxious to ensure that the utmost cooperation is achieved between our authorities and the Northern Ireland authorities to ensure that the concerns of businesses, both north and south, and that the interdependence of our businesses, as we discussed earlier, that's kept on the agenda at all times.
Thank you, Deputy, and you're absolutely right. And I know that there's contact at official level between my department and officials in the department in Northern Ireland in terms of how we can cooperate. Because we want to make sure that we can assist in every way we can, because this Brexit is going to throw out many challenges. In terms of government, I know that there's obviously cooperation on a governmental basis as well, and as you know, the Taoiseach, Minister Coveney is regularly visiting the north, and any opportunity I get, I go to the north, as I know you do too, Deputy, and I've spoken on a number of occasions to the CBI and we have outlined what we're doing here, and indeed at one of those occasions they said to me, we're so pleased to hear what's happening, because we're looking to we're actually looking to the Dublin government to find out you know, what the next steps are, and it is going to be catastrophic for businesses in Northern Ireland if they can't get their goods exported south of the border without tariffs and without checks, because that's what we want. We want it to stay as it is. It's so important that that free flow and movement of people and goods continue. But at least in terms of the agreement, the common travel area is protected, as you know, Deputy, and that's important that people know they can move over and back the border seamlessly.